Alrighty then, so let's jump in and connect some of these other shaders. Let's get this guy out of the way. This is my ambient occlusion. I'm just going to plug that right into the ambient occlusion channel. Now, one thing you may notice, I will show you later how you can actually make a controller for this. Hold on. Okay, so as I'm adjusting these, things are happening, but the ambient occlusion just adds some depth. It adds some, if we look at the image of the ambient occlusion, this is what ambient occlusion is. Ambient occlusion is literally ambient light being occluded from an object's certain areas where it's going to get less bounce light. Okay? What that basically means is that um, if you were to look at a room and you look in the corners of the room, if you look around in whatever room you're in right now, um, you're going to notice that in the corners along the ceiling and in the far corners away from the light that it's darker in those areas even if it's relatively lit. And that's because the angles of the surfaces don't allow for as much light to actually bounce in those areas. In this case, it would be those individual pieces here. So basically, an ambient occlusion map is a grayscale image that goes into that particular channel that goes on top of the texturing and adds just a little bit more depth and contrast to it by darkening it in areas that in the real world it would be darkened because not as much light is actually hitting it. So that's what an ambient occlusion is. Okay. What are you? My roughness. Okay, so the brooks look nice. They actually don't look bad. A little shiny, you know, and it's basically because everything is very default right now. Okay. Also, one thing that we'll notice if we zoom in, you know what? I'm gonna increase this for a second. This is at 4:4, but I'm just gonna go repeat once, once, once on the U, once on the V, once up and once across, so I can see these bigger, so that you can see. You know what? Let's plug in the normal map first, because that's the big chunk and that actually has a lot of stuff. So what you'll notice with a normal map is it looks great. Really makes this surface look a lot more realistic. But as we get closer and closer, the normal map starts to break up and starts to get fuzzy and stuff like that. Okay. And part of that is because it is just a texture map. The normal map is a three-dimensional bump map that is being basically tricking lighting based off of the X, Y, and Z angle and making it draw this surface as if it was three-dimensional and this was the information from a surface that would actually, let's say a modeled brick wall, that these actually would have been indentations and how light from the X or the Y or the Z would be affecting it. So it's mimicking this and it's actually showing it and doing it pretty well. This is how a lot of the newer video games, most of the newer video games, especially if you're looking at Battlefield, Gears of War, all of those, most of them are using these techniques. Unless they're very, very stylized. So that's all great, but sometimes you want to get close and not have it fall apart. Right now, this bump map is doing this is what you call your primary, excuse me, not bump map, normal map, your primary normal map. And if I want to tag that, I select it and I go to the bottom left, and I'm just going to go right in the properties where it says material expression DESC, that's description. So I could type in primary normal map. And when I hit enter, boop, there's my little blurb, so I know exactly what the deuce this is. So that's going to be very useful to me, just like this was saying, oh, this is the color. You know, these nodes are controlling the color. I know that they're in this little group, and I'm going to do the same for this one. What we need is a few things for this. Number one, we need a controller and we need to have a secondary normal map, a detail map. So what the heck is that? A secondary normal map that would combine with this one would allow us to have like the primary normal map, which are the bricks and the the grout in between, pushing those bricks out. And then when we zoom in, having an extra level of detail like you saw earlier, that goes, wow, the closer I get, the more detail I see, instead of, wow, the closer I get, the more fuzzy this is, and it reminds me I'm in a video game. Oh no. So, excuse me. So, what we're going to do is we're going to make that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow one from Unreal. So if I actually go to, let's go to my starter content in textures, and I'm going to type in concrete, and I'm going to look for a secondary normal map that'll be in here. That is, let's see, not panels, poured tiles. What's this? That might work. Let me see. So just so you can see what some of these look like. Hello, hello. That's not going to work. I don't want this pattern, so you're out of the running. Now, this one is promising. This one is definitely promising. It has some nice little details that could go well inside of that normal map, and I'm thinking I'm liking it. So I hit Find CB to make sure I have that one selected. Find CB means I've selected it in the content browser. And then I'm going to go to my material, and I'm going to drop that puppy right into there. Boop. So to make this work, I need a few things. Okay. One, let me pull out the nodes, and then I'm going to describe and note exactly what the heck they are doing. I need a multiply, letter M, left mouse button. I need an add, letter A, left mouse button. I need a vector parameter, but I'm going to bring in hold down 3, which is a constant vector 3. Just means it constantly has 3 vector channels. It has 3 channels in it. And I will convert this to a vector parameter in a second. And you know what, I'm going to turn off these live updates because they're making things chug a little. Okay. And I'm going to line them up. Yep, just like this. Okay. This guy is my secondary normal map. This one's the detail. Okay. This is the primary. This is all the big details. And I have to bring them together. So this is what we're going to do. If I just combine these two together, they nullify each other. And we don't want that. I want to be able to have control over this. There's even a node that could combine them and make it look better, but I like having the control and being able to fine tune and tweak out these materials. So this vector constant vector 3 is going to control the intensity of each of these channels, red, green, and blue, each one emphasizing a separate angle of detail on the XYZ axis. So in other words, the brighter the red is, the more intense the red channel is, which in the normal map is the X angle. So if I combine this, I take the white tab at the top, plug it into A, and then I plug this guy into the B. So they're combined. This one is going to control the intensity of these. At 0, nothing is going through to the multiply right now. This guy, whatever this output is going to be added to the primary normal map. So instead of me combining these and them nullifying each other, what's going to happen is I'm combining these so I can intensify this only certain channels more, height, width, not depth, so that it's only affecting the height and the width angles, or I should say the x and the y angles, not the z, which would be your depth. And this, so this is going to control, let me put my little description here, control the normal, or the secondary normal intensity. Controls the secondary normal intensity. This is the secondary normal map. And then this becomes my new normal map, and I plug it right in there. Now, it takes a second for it to calculate, and you'll notice that really nothing has changed, because by default this guy has a value of black, which means it's not doing anything, which means this guy is being exactly as it was with before I even hook these things up. Until I go in and say, you know what, on the R and the G, or the which would be the X and the Y, I want to intensify this. Watch this as I do this. I'm going to intensify this by 1. Already see some stuff going on. Intensify this by 1. Do you see those extra details starting to pop out? Look at that. Other problem is this guy is not being tiled right now. So it might be a good idea to duplicate, control copy, paste a text coordinate, plug it into here, and then say, wow, maybe I want to tile this 2 by 2 times. So I can tighten that up, see? But now look, we weren't getting this detail. And if I wanted more, I'll intensify the R and the G. I don't really need to mess with the B. If I mess with the B, it flattens out the depth and will flatten out these nice primary grooves that we have. So if I boost that to like a 2.5, and boost you to a 2.5, look at that. So now we've got the benefit of both. We've got this nice detail back here, and we zoom in, and man, that's still detailed. That's pretty cool. Okay. So that's working out pretty well. Digging on that. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Let me stop that one there.